Emily's first memories of her father, Edward, are always associated with warm Sunday mornings. He has the habit of making pancakes for the whole family, and not just simple pancakes, but also shaped into funny faces that make Emily laugh non-stop. "Emily, little princess, come here and help Dad turn over these works of art." His voice was always full of love and joy. Those were the days when Emily felt the whole world was in her parents' arms. But that happiness ended one spring morning when Edward suddenly collapsed, clutching his chest. That scene, the sound of utensils clattering on the kitchen floor, her father's pain-filled eyes, all were still fresh in Emily's memory, like a wound that would never heal. Everything after that happened like a nightmare. The sirens of the ambulance, the white hospital hallways, and the image of her mother, Anna, slumped in a chair with tears in her eyes. In that moment, Emily clearly felt her safe, love-filled world had collapsed. Her father, who always made everything brilliant, left her forever. The house that was once filled with laughter now feels empty and cold. However, that sadness did not last long for Anna. Just a few months later, she joined a support group for widowed parents, where she met Richard. He was a kind man with warm eyes and a slight smile that reminded Emily vaguely of her father. But for Emily, no one can replace Edward. When Richard moves in with them, Emily struggles to accept the change. Her little heart not only lost her father, but now also has to share her mother's affection with a stranger. When Anna announced her pregnancy, Emily was only 8 years old. Instead of joy, this announcement made Emily feel abandoned again. Anna's radiant eyes and excited voice were like a knife carving deep into her heart. Her mother no longer saw her as a child in need of love. All attention is now solely on the baby that is about to be born. Tommy's birth brought with him Anna's overwhelming joy. She devoted all her time, attention, and love to him. Emily, then 8 years old, clearly felt the change in the house. Everything, from her mother's eyes, her kind voice, to her warm hugs, are now devoted to Tommy. "Tommy needs Mom," Anna said, every time Emily stood quietly outside their conversation, her sad eyes searching for some concern. Those excuses, repeated over and over, gradually became an invisible wall separating Emily and her mother. Emily begins to realize she has become a shadow in the house that was once her refuge. One time, she forgot to bring her lunchbox to school and called her mother in desperation. But when she returned home, her mother just blurted out an apology. Her eyes quickly turned to the crying Tommy. Emily doesn't blame her mother, but disappointment gnaws at her every day. While sitting alone at her desk, she heard her mother sing Tommy a lullaby and wondered if she had ever sung that to her. Richard, Emily's stepfather, sees it all. His worried frowns at dinner or the times he quietly sat next to her, helping her with her homework, were all signs that he was trying to compensate for the deprivation that Emily was suffering. But Richard's love, no matter how sincere, cannot fill the void left by his mother. As each day passes, the difference in how Mom treats Emily and Tommy becomes more apparent. While Tommy is surrounded by excessive love, Emily is reduced to just an observer. Gradually, she learned to hide her emotions. Her smile faded and her eyes became melancholy. She didn't know if anyone realized that the child still needed love, but perhaps no one noticed. Richard, the only person in the house who still cares about Emily's feelings, tries his best to act as a bridge between her and Anna. In the evenings, when Anna was busy lulling Tommy to sleep, Richard would quietly enter Emily's room, carrying a cup of hot chocolate and an exercise book. "Emily, come on, let me help you," he said, his voice deep and patient. To Emily, Richard's presence was like a glimmer of light in the midst of gloomy days, a reminder that she was not completely forgotten. However, Richard's efforts were just like small waves hitting the solid wall that Anna had built around Tommy. The times he advised Anna to let Tommy be more independent ended in tense arguments. "Richard, you don't understand," Anna said, her voice high and defensive. "Tommy is young, and he needs me." These words not only left Richard helpless, but also made Emily feel like an outsider in her own home. One time, Richard suggested taking Tommy to join the baseball team. "The boy needs to exercise and learn how to work in a team," he told Anna over dinner. But this proposal was immediately rejected. "You want Tommy to be in danger? The kids there are very rough," Anna protested, her voice filled with anger. Emily sat next to her, quietly pushing food on her plate, clearly feeling the tension rising in the air. Although he failed to change Anna's mind, Richard did not give up on Emily. He began to spend more time taking her to karate classes, cheering enthusiastically during each competition. But Richard's concern could not erase the sadness that Emily carried in her heart. She felt trapped between her stepfather's sincere love and her mother's indifference, like a small boat drifting between two opposing currents. Even though she received attention from Richard, Emily still couldn't hide her displeasure when she witnessed Tommy becoming more and more dependent on his mother. As the boy grew older, his room became a mess, with toys and clothes thrown everywhere. Emily, now accustomed to the role of unpaid helper, was often asked by her mother to clean her brother's room. "Emily, please clean Tommy's room. You know he's busy," Anna said, her voice sweet but not allowing for refusal. Each time, Emily felt caught between responsibility and injustice, but she did not dare to protest. One day, Richard discovered this. When he saw Emily bending down to collect Tommy's dirty shirts one by one, he could no longer stay silent. "Sarah, you're not Tommy's servant," he told Anna frankly, his voice filled with frustration. But Richard's words did not make Anna think, but only made her burst into tears. "I know, you only love Emily, and Tommy is nothing to you." Anna sobs, turning the injustice into her personal pain. For the first time, Emily clearly saw disappointment appear on Richard's face. He was silent, his eyes full of fatigue, before quietly leaving the room. From that day on, he no longer argued with Anna about the way she treated Tommy. Instead, he turned to spending more time with Emily, as a way to compensate for the lack of love she was suffering. But injustice continues to weigh heavily on Emily. While Tommy is cherished by his mother like a treasure, Emily must find a way to grow up on her own. Every time she watched her mother hold Tommy in her arms, Emily wondered why she never gave her that kind of love. The feeling of being abandoned and unloved gradually became a dull pain in her heart, causing her to become more and more closed. As time passed, Emily learned to face injustice in silence, but that silence did not mean acceptance. During her high school years, she focused on her studies and extracurricular activities to escape the stuffy atmosphere at home. With Richard's unwavering support, Emily achieved excellent results, making him extremely proud. Meanwhile, Anna and Tommy hardly pay attention to her efforts because they are too busy with their own lives. The day Emily graduated from high school, Richard was the only one standing in the stands cheering her on, while Anna didn't take her eyes off her phone, perhaps checking to see if Tommy had eaten or if he needed anything. Even after receiving a scholarship and receiving financial support from Richard to go to college, Emily still could not completely escape family pressure. Anna strongly opposes spending money on Emily's college education, insisting that the money should be saved for Tommy's future. This makes many people feel angry on Emily's behalf. In an American culture where independence and equal opportunity are valued, Anna's actions were seen as a profound injustice. Emily was not only abandoned, but also overlooked, as if her efforts were not worthy of appreciation. Audiences who read Emily's story can sympathize with her, as this is a situation that many young people in America may find familiar, struggling to assert themselves in a family with obvious bias. Clearly, Emily needs to learn to set limits on what she is willing to endure. Many people would advise her to focus on her own life and find a community of support outside of her family, such as friends, professors, or student support groups. If there's one lesson from American culture to impart to Emily, it's this: you can't change how others treat you, but you can choose how to treat yourself. Emily needs to continue to be strong, focus on her career, and learn to refuse unreasonable demands from her mother. The audience will hope that the girl will soon realize her true value and build a life no longer bound by unfair expectations. College life gives Emily a breath of fresh air, an opportunity to start over in a place where she is no longer oppressed by the burden of family. There, she is no longer Tommy's older sister or the forgotten child, but herself, Emily, a passionate and talented student. With her new freedom, she focused on studying and joining clubs, building healthy friendships. But every time she called home, the heavy feeling returned. The conversation always revolved around Tommy and the difficulties he was facing, as if Emily no longer existed in her mother's eyes. Richard, as always, was the only one who encouraged Emily. He often calls privately to ask about her college life, gives her valuable advice, and reminds her that she is doing very well. "Emily, keep it up, you're on the right track," he said. But his voice gradually became tired, because at home, Tommy became increasingly dependent on his mother, and Anna refused all of Richard's efforts to change the situation. When Emily returns home for the holidays, she finds Tommy immersed in the virtual world of video games. Even though he was an adult, he had no intention of finding a job or pursuing higher education. Anna still blindly protects him, justifying that Tommy is very sensitive and cannot handle pressure. This is in direct contrast to American culture, where independence and responsibility are core values. Readers may feel indignant when they see Emily caught up in a spiral of unfair demands from her mother. This made them want to encourage her to continue pursuing the freedom she had begun in college. A necessary step, from an American cultural perspective, is that Emily needs to learn how to say no to unreasonable requests, especially when they affect her future. By cutting her emotional dependence on her family and creating the necessary distance, Emily can build a life that truly reflects her values. She needs to believe that, in a society that encourages independence like America, choosing yourself is not only a right, but also a responsibility. After graduating from college, Emily began her career at a consulting firm in West Virginia. She finally has what every young person in America dreams of: financial freedom, a life of her own, and the opportunity to build a career unhindered by unfair expectations. The small apartment she rented became a place she could proudly call home, even though she still sent $1,500 to her mother every month to help the family. However, every time she saw the money leave her account, Emily couldn't help but feel bitter. She wondered, why do I have to sacrifice for a family that never really values me? Things reach a climax when Emily throws a housewarming party and only Richard attends. During dinner, he candidly shared about the situation at home. Tommy didn't go to college, didn't have a job, and spent most of his time playing games or going out drinking with friends. Richard, who always tries to encourage Tommy to work at his construction company, only receives opposition from Anna. "Sarah said manual labor was below Tommy's level," he said, his voice filled with disappointment. Emily nodded silently, feeling anger rising inside her as she realized that her sacrifice was being taken advantage of. A year later, when Richard suddenly died of a heart attack, Emily felt like she lost the only person in her family who really cared about her. The funeral only made the injustice in this family relationship even clearer. Anna cried in front of everyone, but Emily knew those tears were not because of Richard, but because of the financial insecurity she faced. Tommy, who has grown up but still looks like an irresponsible child, appears at the funeral in unkempt clothes, not bothering to show any sadness. After Richard's death, Anna calls and begs Emily to continue sending money to help the family. However, this time Emily has changed. She recalls the values of American culture she learned in college and through her own life. Putting yourself first is not selfish, but necessary for survival. When Anna asked her to send $1,500 a month to support Tommy and even his girlfriend, Emily had the courage to say no. She immediately canceled the automatic transfer and firmly declared, "I cannot live my life serving people who do not appreciate me." American readers will easily sympathize and support Emily. American culture promotes independence and fairness, especially in the family. Many people would encourage Emily to cut out the toxic relationship and focus on building the life she deserves. The act of refusing to send money was not only a way to protect her finances, but also the first step towards Emily taking back control of her life. After canceling her monthly stipend, Emily felt a liberation she had never experienced before. She began to focus on her personal goals, investing for her career, saving to buy a house, and discovering passions that she had not dared to pursue before. However, that peace did not last long. Anna, not accepting rejection, begins to use every means to put pressure on Emily. The persistent calls, the long Facebook messages, even the scolding emails, all blamed Emily for abandoning the family. Tommy also did not stand aside. He sent an angry text message, blaming Emily for the difficulties he and Anna were having. "Mom is crying every day for you," he wrote, as if Anna's tears were Emily's responsibility. Tommy's girlfriend, Candy, even sent a message via LinkedIn, begging Emily to help the man she loves get through a difficult time. But this time, Emily did not give in. Each message of reproach only made her more steadfast in her decision. Emily has learned that it's not her responsibility to shoulder other people's mistakes, especially when they don't make an effort to change. With support from friends and colleagues, Emily began to see her worth more clearly. American readers will find Emily's actions very supportive. In a culture that values individuality and independence, her refusal to endure toxic relationships was not only the right choice, but also necessary to protect her mental and financial health. Miss advice for Emily is to continue building her life, taking advantage of the freedom she has earned. Instead of feeling guilty, she should direct her energy into positive things, participating in community activities, building healthy relationships, and investing in her future. As an American proverb goes, you can't pour from an empty cup. Emily needs to fill her cup before thinking about helping others.